Good morning, Chief Moore.
Good morning, Commissioner President Briggs, Commissioner Vice President Decker, Commissioner Bonner, Commissioner Clanche, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. City Attorney, and Mr. Chiefang. I'm going to begin my remarks regarding a COVID-19 update, and I'm going to carry the numbers are going back to our last meeting, which was the first part of October. So over the 3-week period, we've had 45 additional new COVID-19 confirmed cases. That is consisting of both sworn and civilians. On the over the last 3 weeks, the numbers have varied from a high of 16 to a low of 11. So that essentially we've bottomed out as far as the lower numbers. As a reminder, this goes back to the continued trend that we've seen since July of this year. Of the 45 new cases, 31 of them were individuals that have been fully vaccinated. I'm happy to report that we have no hospitalizations, and we have seen an improvement in our long haul COVID cases with the reduction of an additional case. So we now stand at 15 long haul cases, which we look to their full recovery. We did see an increase in the number of personnel that are at home, with 63 now at home recovering. And the return to duty stands at 6,248. Moving next into the events, the significant events, I'm going to talk about 5 different areas. First part of October, after our last meeting, I had the opportunity to go to the Hollywood area and meet with Mr. Troy Spann, who's their Urban Alchemy director there for the CIRCLE program. That is a crisis and incident response through community-led engagement city program. It's under the leadership of Lakeisha Williams, who's the Unified Homeless Response Center director out of the mayor's office. And in the Hollywood area, we enjoyed an afternoon of walking with outreach workers and counselors and those others that have been formerly homeless, and talking about their challenges, but also the opportunities that they're experiencing and the difference they're making in the Hollywood community. As a reminder, this program, one of the first in the country, works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, consistently in the Hollywood community. It is also a similar program that is now in place in Pacific, Central, and Hollenbeck areas. So I'm pleased to discuss the fact that this unarmed response model is expanding. We're now, again, in a total of 5 areas. And then beginning on November 7th, we'll see a further expansion into the Mission Foothill areas, as well as Van Nuys in the San Fernando Valley. So we'll be adding 3 additional sites in the San Fernando Valley in the next few weeks. And then in early part of 2023, we look to the program to expand further into South Bureau with Newton and 77. In talking with our captains and officers that were on scene with us and accompanying us through this walkthrough, if you will, of the area, we had opportunity to visit individuals who were in camp that were talked with high regard for the program, about it's making a difference in their lives. They're learning to trust and gain acceptance of resources that are being provided to them, including housing and a path to housing. I met with another couple that were here from Oregon, and they were very supportive of the resources that CIRCLE is providing, but also the counseling and support that's going to see those 2 individuals with brother and sister that are saving up money to go back to Oregon and reestablish their life there. So it's just cannot bring enough attention to this program, how impressed I am by the professionalism of it, the caring, the concern that this program has, and the difference it's making in improving the quality of life and the sense of safety in the Hollywood community, and I believe also in those other communities in which we see this program in its engagement. Second area I want to talk about is we had the 3rd annual Faith in Blue Community Dialogue. This was a nationwide effort to bring law enforcement and our faith communities together to build towards stronger communities built on mutual respect and trust. I want to thank the St. Bernadette Catholic Church, their Deacon Jim Carper, who hosted our representation, our people, as well as their congregation. Reverend Markle Hutchins, who is a leader of this on a nationwide basis, traveled to Los Angeles specifically to participate in the LAPD Faith in Blue community outreach, which was not just at St. Bernadette, but at other locations around the city. This is, again, the largest one across the country, with 750 law enforcement officers and 750 law enforcement partners, and all across the number of states is continuing to grow and expand. And we're grateful for the partnership opportunity that this movement offers us. Next issue is this last Saturday, I attended the Valley Bureau Reserve and Volunteer Appreciation Day It was a day-long effort, is not just showing our appreciation for the hundreds of volunteers and reserve officers that work in the San Fernando Valley, but also a critical training update on bias policing, on matters of procedural justice, and on the safety of both our reserve officers as well as our volunteers. Had an opportunity to do a question and answer period for about an hour, hearing their concerns, but also encouraging their heart and encouraging their continued participation. I believe that the reserves, more than 400 in the city, and our community volunteers, which now are in excess of 1,500, are making a marked difference, not just in the services and support that they help a staffed, a resource staffed compromised department, but more importantly, it's just the relationships that are formed as they get to learn more about policing, about the challenges, and about our efforts and strategies, and they're able to go back into the very communities in which they live and communicate that in an effort to build trust and confidence in this organization. I want to thank the commissioners for their attendance last Thursday on the Above and Beyond ceremony, moving day, an opportunity to see 9 Medal of Valor awardees, as well as 3 Preservation of Life awardees and 3 Purple Heart awardees. This was an opportunity that we have captured the videos, the vignettes of these encounters in which our people facing trying and very dangerous circumstances demonstrated their commitment to protect and to serve, and many times even at great personal risk. Yesterday also, we had the opportunity to provide 28 life-saving medals, or award 28 life-saving medals to officers within the organization that through their efforts, many times spontaneous and instances in which they just happened upon a crisis situation, rose to the call and provide life-saving measures that made a difference in saving a person's life. Moving from those discussions, I want to move lastly into the CPAB Summit. Commissioner Bonner, I appreciate you being there, as well as Commissioner Briggs. I believe Commissioner Calancier was there as well. This was a Saturday day event that provided a citywide update to all of our 21 CPAB co-chairs and a number of other CPAB members. We talked about the importance of membership engagement, the purpose and underlying strategies that make for an effective Community Police Advisory Board interaction with us as critical advisors into the neighborhood concerns and stakeholders as to our efforts in providing for a safer Los Angeles. Moving into our categorical uses of force, I'm going to report on an officer-involved shooting as well as an officer-involved shooting involving an animal. On the 11th of October, at approximately 3:30 in the morning, Harbor Uniform Patrol officers were conducting extra patrol in the area of North Manning Boulevard and East E Street. There they observed a blue GMC pickup truck that was south of their location. The vehicle suddenly accelerated and collided with a tree nearby and the traffic median on East E Street. Officers responded to that location. As they deployed at the scene, they observed that the vehicle was now empty and the occupant had fled. Upon broadcasting the vehicle license plate, the officers learned that the vehicle was reported stolen. After a brief search of the area, officers located an individual hiding in nearby bushes. He was later identified as a Jason Sanderson, a male, white, 41 years of age. Mr. Sanderson ran from the scene and a foot pursuit ensued. He was chased from East E Street onto northbound Quarry Avenue. That's Q-U-A-Y Avenue. At the conclusion of the foot pursuit, Mr. Jason Sanderson pointed a semi-automatic handgun at the pursuing officers, which resulted in an officer-involved shooting. Officers immediately redeployed to nearby parked vehicles and radioed for help. Mr. Sanderson then sought cover behind a parked semi-trailer and fired several rounds at the officers from his handgun. Approximately 5 minutes after the first officer-involved shooting, Mr. Sanderson pointed the firearm again at the responding officers, and a second officer-involved shooting occurred, in which he was struck by gunfire. Officers formed an arrest team and took him into custody. LA fire personnel responded and pronounced Mr. Sanderson deceased at the scene. Fortunately, and I'm grateful that no officers were injured during this officer-involved shooting. Numerous items of evidence were recovered near Mr. Sanderson's body, including a 9mm polymer 80 semi-automatic handgun. This is commonly referred to as a ghost gun. There was one 10-round magazine and a reloaded Rossi stainless steel 38 caliber revolver with inside 3 spent casings and 2 live rounds still in the cylinder. Additionally, there was 2 9mm spent casings. The evidence on scenes supported that the fact that the multiple firearms were used by the suspect firing at the officers at that location. Additionally, the suspect was carrying a satchel during the OAS that contained another loaded J22 22 caliber semi-automatic pistol and an additional 38 and 22 caliber ammunition. Second incident I'm reporting on occurred in the West Valley area on the 21st of October at approximately 11 o'clock in the morning. There, West Valley area narcotic detail personnel served a search warrant. The location was the 7800 block of Yarmouth Avenue. The search warrant was following a narcotic investigation. Personnel assigned to the narcotic enforcement detail were searching the residence. Other investigators were outside in the front and rear yard of the residence. The owner of the dog, Mrs. Ellers, Jennifer Ellers, female, Asian, 42 years of age, was in the backyard attempting to restrain a canine that was on the leash. The large dog broke free from Miss Ellers and immediately ran towards one of the detectives who was also in the backyard. The detective was standing behind a small gate as the dog lunged at her. This resulted in the dog latching onto the detective's left hand. The detective responded by unholstering her pistol with her right hand and firing one round at the animal. The animal was not struck by the round, but did flee from the detectives. The detective sustained a punctured wound to her left hand. She was transported to a nearby hospital and treated for her injuries. I'm grateful that she was released from the hospital. Will get further treatment. The animal, which was a shepherd with 120 pounds, was not injured. However, he was taken into custody by the Department of Animal Regulation, Animal Services, and there was no other officers injured during this incident. As a result of the last officer-involved shooting that I reported from the Harbor area, we now stand at a total of 30 officer-involved shootings for the year. Last year, that number today was at 31. We have had 14 fatal officer-involved shootings. Last year, that number was at 12. And look, I often report on our four-year average. Our four-year average as of today for officer-involved shootings would be 26. And our four-year average for the number of fatals is just under 10. There'll be a report later today that's before the commission on an open agenda item for a report to the city council on officer-involved shootings for the first 6 months. But in that passage of time, I'd like to just briefly update you now on these 31 officer-involved shootings. We're seeing a marked decrease in the number of edged weapons. Out of 31 officer-involved shootings, we now have 5 of those involving an edged weapon. Last year at this time, that number was 10. In regards to the officer-involved shootings involving a firearm, we've seen the number increase from 14 officer-involved shootings to now 19, which make up 63% of all officer-involved shootings, which is above our more than a decade average. Third area of concern is that we have now seen officers fired on by suspects increase from 4 instances last year to 7 this year. And last matter is we have seen an improvement in regards to instances of an officer-involved shooting involving a person who's mentally ill, with that number decrease from 12 instances last year to 6 instances this year. Moving forward, I'm going to talk briefly about crime. We are seeing an improvement and a reduction or slowing of our shooting violence versus the same time last year. This last week, I have to report the city only sustained 1 homicide. Well, 1 homicide too many, but that's a marked reduction from the 8 homicides we saw at the same period last year. In regards to shooting victims, last week we had 13 shooting victims, and which is a marked reduction of our average, as well as last year that number stood at 32. I want to brag a minute that South Bureau, in their efforts of working with the community and their collective work in improving public safety, has seen an overall reduction of 102 fewer shooting victims year to date than they did the same period last year. So my compliments to the communities within South Bureau, as well as the leadership of Chief Gerald Woodyard and his entire command staff. The area of concern that we do have is that we have 4 areas that have seen an increase in shooting violence, 3 of them in the Central Bureau. Hollenbeck has had 23 additional shooting victims this year, followed by Central at 22 additional shooting victims, and Rampart at plus 16. The other 4th area is Foothill area up in the northeast part of the San Fernando Valley, which has seen an increase of 13 additional shooting victims. Our work will continue in our violent crime task force efforts of added patrols, as well as adding investigative resources to identify those individuals involved in these shootings. We have seen our homicide clearance rate increase year over year. We're now above 70%. So more than 7 out of 10 of our homicides are being solved. However, we're also focusing on solving more of our shooting instances, recognizing that these very dangerous individuals are likely involved in other serious crimes, including other shootings as well. Overall, today we stand at, or as of this last Saturday, we have 320 homicides year to date versus 327 last year. That's a reduction of just over 2%. Violent crime has been reduced, or I'm sorry, violent crime now stands at 3.5% of an increase year to date. As a reminder, that's a full percentage point reduction from where we were just 4 weeks ago. We have seen improvements in our rate of robberies as well as our aggravated assaults. In regards to property crimes, we now have a 10.5% increase in property crime. These are increases in all of our categories. However, we have seen an improvement in our vehicle theft rate of thefts. Overall, Part 1 crime now stands at an 8.7% increase. Again, 4 weeks ago, that was nearly a full percentage point higher. So we are seeing a slowing of these trends compared to last year's point. However, our challenges still remain, with homicides standing since 2019 with a more than 47% increase from 2019 in homicides and a more than 41% increase in our shooting victims. And our robberies, which are down since 2019 by more than 2%, we still see a 48% increase in the number of robberies involving a firearm. So firearms continue to be our most pressing concern, and our investigations, both in identifying those that are carrying those guns, using those guns, but also is expanding into identifying gun traffickers. And we're working with our narcotic details at the area level to identify individuals who are aware or know of individuals who are manufacturing these weapons, whether it be in parking, in garages or backyards or machine shops. They are profiting at the expense of the loss of life of others. And the department is very interested in identifying those sources of these firearms, and will provide rewards and incentives to individuals who can confidentially identify individuals who are engaged in this conduct. And will allow us to go and arrest those individuals. And working with the new U.S. attorney as well as the district attorney, I've got their full commitment that they will pursue aggressive charges for those gun traffickers that are purveying death here in our city. Lastly, I want to talk about a very serious matter that's garnered a great deal of attention, as it should, this weekend, involving a flyer drop that occurred on Saturday, where officers received a radio call at the 405 freeway at La Tierra. And officers responded there, and upon arrival found that the California Highway Patrol were already on scene and working or dealing with a group that had that were reportedly throwing things onto the freeway. And the CHP took control of that investigation and advised that no information or no further assistance was needed. The CHP did make contact with these individuals. It was a small group, a very verbally insulting group, but they did monitor them. And while filled with hate speak, the group eventually left after about 30 minutes. The CHP concluded their investigation. Just yesterday, there was a counter protest that occurred at the same location with a smaller group involving 5 signs to try to push back, as far as verbally and representatively about that hateful message that was on full display on the freeway overpass on Saturday. Over that period of time, we've seen a continuation of flyer drops. Flyer drops involve a hate group or groups that are using printed materials that contain anti-Semitic messages and voices of hate. And they're dropped in residential areas, left on vehicles or in yards, locations for people to find. That's last weekend. We had such an occurrence in the Brentwood and Century City neighborhoods of West LA. And I want to thank the neighborhoods who brought that information forward to us, including a neighbor who allowed us to have access to their neighborhood camera, to their ring, if you will, system of cameras, that providing us images that are allowing our Major Crimes Division to investigate and to identify the individual we believe responsible. We are working with the District Attorney's Office as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office to pursue any criminal behavior, any criminal hate statutes against this individual. We do believe it's part of a larger group, of a collective group that's attempting to intimidate and harass and create a sense of fear in the Jewish community. Overall, hate crimes year to date are since last year are up nearly 12% across the city. That's 562 hate crimes this year versus 503 last year. Most troubling is that this is a continuation of already an accelerated path where over a 2-year period, we've had a 71% increase in hate crimes, with 328 hate crimes occurring in 2020 versus, again, 562 year to date in 2022. In regards to anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic messages, 76 of those anti-Semitic bias. That number was 70 last year, so it's an increase of 6. These are actual hate crimes, not just protected First Amendment hate speech. That's an increase of just over 8%. And over a 2-year period, that's 76 year to date versus 43 in 2020, which is a 77% increase. So our focus is on both awareness, working with our communities and standing fast with them. We have, and our officers are alerted to added patrols and manners of watching for individuals who may be involved in this activity, as well as us joining with community organizations to stand unified with them. But make no mistake about it. We are actively and aggressively will pursue every hate crime, including these most recent events, to identify and aggressively prosecute those responsible. There's no place for hate here in Los Angeles, and this most recent spat of these, we understand is troubling to our communities. It's unsettling to them, and it won't be. And we will not stand by and allow it to go without our efforts to address as much as possible. Regarding our staffing numbers, we are now stand at 9,235 sworn members of this department. That is in contrast to the authorized strength of 9,460, 225 underneath our authorized strength. We did have a class of 45 new recruits start yesterday, and on Friday, we had a group of 33 that graduated from the academy and started their careers. Civilian workforce stand at 2,659, and our workforce, our authorized strength is 2,705. That's 46 underneath our authorized strength. As I mentioned earlier, we have 411 reserve officers, and volunteers stand. I stand corrected. Our volunteers stand at nearly 2,300 registered city volunteers that work with us in various capacities across the city. Thank you for your patience on my extended remarks, and that concludes them. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Chief, I just have a couple of questions before I call on some of the other commissioners. With respect to the personnel strength, I thought our authorized number was 9,700 or more.
Well, it's to land at 9,700 by the end of this fiscal year. So what happens is the effort is to rebuild the organization from our earlier staffing numbers. And so you're correct. We are trying to reach a 9,705 at the end of this fiscal year, which would be June of 23.
Okay. And what is the maximum class size that we can have at the academy?
Currently, we're at 60 with an allowance by a California Post to exceed their recommended number, which is 50.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. At this time, Commissioner Clancy, do you have any questions for Chief Moore?
I do. Thank you. Hi, Chief. I want to go back to the Circle program to ask, what is the role of police in that whole, in the program?
So first, radio calls for service involving nonviolent individuals that are experiencing homelessness, may be involved in some type of disruptive activity in the area or causing some type of concern as to a safety matter. Will call those community members will call 911. The communications center has a triage and will dispatch directly that call to the Circle dispatch center. So the police involvement were the first point of contact via 911 or 912, but we triage the call. And again, if it's a nonviolent call, we will rely upon Circle dispatch for them to actually go out to the scene. Our senior leads, our area captains, our patrol officers also come in contact with Circle members on a regular basis. And they share information with if we have individuals we believe that are in need of services that would benefit by the trust building engagement by members of Circle. It's a problem solving effort. Our senior leads work with the Circle deputies, if you will, to identify problem encampments that are creating disturbances, whether it be with trash, debris, or noise or other matters, as an effort to utilize Circle as an effective means of resolving a situation and avoiding us from having to respond and be engaged. Lastly, we're a safety net for Circle. There are instances in which they come across individuals that are violent, that are threatening, that are committing crimes that the circle will reach out to us and we'll respond and take that call and carry it forward, allowing Circle to go back to their to their role and their responsibilities within the program.
Thank you. Quick follow-up. So when a 911 call is made, the dispatcher can send the call to the Circle team. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And then so dispatch is trained to be able to decipher what may be a Circle call versus police response.
Oh, absolutely. The Urban Alchemy is the contract provider for the Circle program, and they have provided intensive training to our 911 operators. Captain Vargas has been a great partner with them in ensuring that our call takers understand their criteria, the limits, as well as the ability. And it's been in talking with, as I did my patrols, my walk that day, and talking with Troy, he was very pleased with our cooperation, very supportive of the collective, our collective efforts, and the relationship that I saw between the Circle participants from Urban Alchemy and others was very supportive of each other. They asked for pictures and wanted to stand and talk and chat. And we visited for well over an hour as we walked the area and spoke with various clients that they're engaged with.
Awesome. I guess my last question would be a request. In your weekly crime report, can you provide us with data for the Circle program, just so we know how it's being used? So does that make sense? Like any stats that those divisions or I don't know if that information is difficult to.
Well, why don't we work? I'll work with Commander Brockway and the UHRC. I know that this entire program is data and data driven in the sense of they are collecting metrics, and I would recommend that we perhaps bring back a report to the commission as to the number of calls that have been dispatched, their dispositions, services been provided, and allow them to really come and speak to the power of the program.
That's important, but I also think that just having a sense, either it could be monthly, a sense of how this is working in our reports, that would be great, just to get a sense versus like waiting for a report. The report will actually be really great as well, but just kind of some data.
Let me look at that, and let me look and see what we can produce on an ongoing basis. And
monthly,
yeah, maybe a monthly or something like that. We'll look into that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Calante. Commissioner Bonner, any questions for Chief Moore?
Yes, three questions, Chief. I'll just tell you what they are, and you can respond. The first one relative to the personnel strength. Over the weekend, I saw some report on ABC News that was claiming to have checked the department website and was reporting 10,300 officers, which seems to me to be just clearly a mistake of some kind. But one is just if you'd make sure that somebody does check around the website to make sure there isn't any such erroneous information. Maybe that's the sheriff's department's number or something. But if you had a comment that has any rationale or any veracity to it, that's one. The second was relative to the shots or shootings, shots fired against police officers. You were mentioning there was a rise, I think, from 4 to 7. And just the question is whether there's any 5 or 10-year average kind of numbers. I think we've seen some of that in the use of force report, but I want to see what that looks like. And then lastly, on the hate crimes, again, you did emphasize that you were referring to crimes and not incidents, but I didn't catch whether that was reference to the entire 500 plus that you're reporting or the 70-something anti-Semitic.
No, the numbers I reported were all crime instances, and the biases were also crime. Anti-Semitic bias were all crime, not hate instances.
Got it.
And as to the officer-involved shootings where officers were fired upon, just one moment. Yeah, I don't have that number directly. I'll have that before the end of the meeting, though. I'm sure that that's just an oversight as far as them providing the
Okay.
And then lastly, in personnel strength, you and I spoke briefly yesterday, and unfortunately, I did not get to the website. The speculation is that is some authorized TO or table of organization number that exists out there as a phantom number, but and not representative of the numbers of actual deployed personnel. But we'll look into that to ensure that no one can misinterpret the number of personnel we have working within the Los Angeles Police Department, sworn or our civilian professional class.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's just noting it because it's a big, it's not like, a rounded number 9,500 or something. That's a pretty big disparity. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonner. Commissioner Decker, any questions for Chief Moore?
Thank you. Yes. Chief, I want to go back to the hate crimes and hate crime incidents to get further clarification. And I just may have missed something as I was writing down your stats. I believe you said there was a 77% increase in anti-Semitic crimes, but I didn't get the time period for which that number reflects.
Goes back to 2020.
So just over a 2-year period, there's been a 77% increase in anti-Semitic crimes.
Yes, from 43 to 76.
43 to 76. And can you describe the efforts of the department in working with both the Jewish community and other communities to address the rise in hate crimes that are clearly happening across our city?
Yeah, so we continue our outreach and engagement with both from my office, a dedicated officer that works with our Jewish communities of all makeups of the Jewish community. We have the Chiefs Forum that works with the Jewish community on a quarterly basis. We also then at the bureau level, and particularly in San Fernando Valley, in the Valley Bureau, as well as in West Bureau, have additional liaisons that partner with various associations, both houses of worship, as well as, so not just the faith community, but also stakeholders such as the Jewish Federation, to partner with them in awareness and identifying patterns or trends. We pay particular attention in high holy days and added deployments and footbeats. I'm proud of the work that Chief Chow has put in identifying reserve officers who wish to be deployed along corridors that are frequented during the high holy days by our Jewish community to have an added presence. We also augment that with uniform patrols, with vehicles that are deployed, and with an outreach engagement, not just for a visible presence, but to reassure that community that we're aware that they are targeted, particularly during some of those holidays events at a greater, certainly their apprehension is heightened during those periods. There is an ongoing awareness through communications with various channels that are media members that release information about our cooperation. When we make arrests or conduct investigations, we're as transparent as possible to ensure that while we don't compromise investigations, that there is an understanding that we are earnest in our desire that these investigations be fruitful and that we identify and prosecute those. Again, we worked with Hatzolah and other community groups to hear from them. What are areas that we can improve? What are areas that we should be, that we can help build trust and confidence that we are standing fast with the Jewish community and against hate of all instances and of all origins and against all groups. And so this is the strategies we use with in addressing anti-Semitic crimes. Also includes intelligence gathering, collection of information that we get from organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League. I'm the chair of the law enforcement committee with Anti-Defamation League, and we meet on a quarterly basis to share information about specific actors that are involved in hate crimes, as well as instances of hate. And while that may be First Amendment protected activities, their activities extend into these flyer drops and other matters that are on the margins that can move into actual crimes. And we want to ensure that there is a strict, bright line there, that we're not allowing or acquiescing to any type of minimizing these levels of crime. We've worked with the city attorney to identify potential nuisance activities or efforts of issuing restraining orders or issues of restricting individuals who have centered their activities at synagogues or at schools where they go and express themselves, express this ignorance and this hate as an effort to try to counter that because of the intimidation that it creates, the fear that it creates in the communities in which these expressions are being made. So we will continue to work and focus on hate against all communities. And right now I bring this focus up regarding the Jewish community, but this extends to our Black community, our Hispanic community, our Asian American Pacific Islander community. We have particular efforts given the terrible and hateful remarks ascending from national office regarding the aftermath of the COVID and the origin of that we've seen such an intimidation of that community, and then certainly the LGBTQ community, which we currently are engaged in a police academy. Lastly, I'll say that I think our demonstration in this was just an occasion, was on Wilshire's open house was on Sunday. Historically, our open houses have been on Saturdays. We heard both in North Hollywood and now Wilshire, a responsiveness to the Jewish community that they wish to partner with us, want to be alongside of us, but we need to be mindful of days of worship and their cultural practices and religious practices and demonstrate a cultural competency and sensitivity to that.
Thank you for that overview. I want to be sure as well, and I believe you covered this, but during the last year, there was a huge effort to ensure members of different communities were aware that they should be reporting hate incidents as well as hate crimes. And I just want to be sure that the department is continuing to undertake all of those efforts in ensuring, in this instance, or this latest reporting with the Jewish community, but clearly with all the communities you identified, that they are aware and continue to be aware of the department's rather new practice or implementation of an existing effort to report both incidents as well as crimes.
Yes, thank you. The expansion of the definition of hate and the incident of hate. Historically, this organization has collected hate instances, but it was, and particularly in hate crimes, where there was a requirement or perceived requirement that it had to be motivated by hate. And most recently, as you stated, in the last 2 years, it's been an expansion of that definition for officers' awareness that we are simply looking for an element of hate. And the underlying motive is not of concern as to the reporting. Let the investigation pursue that and identify whether it can provide that as a specific intent or otherwise. But and lastly, I will tell you that we have our demonstrated resolve in the face of some who have called for hate instances to be taken online in some type of computer access. And instead, we insist that officers respond anytime, anywhere to conduct those investigations or provide a safe haven for a person, a victim of a hate crime or hate incident, to meet with us and for us to take that information. And at the victim's request, we're there to provide service and to ensure the intensity of that investigation is appropriate. We don't think that this is a type of incident that in Los Angeles should become relegated to an online report as if it's just some type of a checkbox.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Chief Moore, I have no further questions for you at this time.